Hello everyone, and welcome again to another installation of Living In with me, Rogelio Rodriguez, Denver real estate agent with eXpRealty. I'm from the Denver metro area. And today we're going to be talking about an area, maybe it's not on the maybe a top 10 list. It could be, depending on the area, in the Midwest, Central. But today we're going to be talking about living in Birmingham, Alabama. And to do that, I have a local real estate agent. Of course, the business is always local. You want to make sure that you get the inside scoop from your trusted real estate agent. So we have George Huertas coming in. So let's give him a good welcome in here.
Good to have you.
All right. How's it going?
It's going great, man. It's definitely a busy time, that's for sure. So, yeah.
I think it's not right. Well, school is going to start here on the corner, so we're probably. I mean, before I know it, summer's going to be gone, and I don't know. It's always hard to tell when people are looking to move, and it's always very situational. But then you also have cycles. But that's where we're at here. And so, George, fellow EXP agent, you're a veteran. You've been around on different ends of the business itself, but also geographically speaking. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that, and then we can get to our location of Birmingham.
Sure. So actually, I've actually been licensed in multiple states. I was licensed originally in California. As a sales agent temporarily. There's a classification called temporary license. So I was licensed there briefly, relocated to Portland, Oregon. And I was there for about 17 years, immediately got into real estate, and I was a top producing agent for a long time with a great company over there. And then in 2020, after COVID, we opted to look at other avenues or other locations. We had teenagers at home, and so we opted to look at the South, partially because I sold 3 homes in 1 year, and they all moved to a small town in kind of central Tennessee. So we actually targeted Tennessee first, since I had basically a built-in clientele between Cookeville, Tennessee, and Knoxville. So I had sold a couple properties to people who moved to Knoxville, right? So I opted to check out Tennessee first, kind of a little small for our taste. So we decided to at the time, take a week and kind of circle around, drive into Mississippi, go into eastern Tennessee, down into Alabama, and then Birmingham. And we landed in Birmingham and actually fell in love. Didn't realize, I'll say this. I've had people visit me and my family at home, and when they get off the plane and we drive through the city, they go, not what I expected, right? Yeah. And so there's so much kind of bad information. There's so many misperceptions about the South in general, but specifically Birmingham. And so, we have a great lifestyle here. It's awesome. When I did make that transition, I was doing very well in real estate in Portland. And so I built a small team, and they were operating my business there in Portland, 2 agents in particular. And we had this 3-year arrangement. And after that, basically all that business would be theirs. And so that lapsed year before last. And so while here, to make the transition, I took a leadership role. Now, I had managed brokerages for about 7 years prior to leaving. So I was a top producing agent, segued into brokerage management and leadership, and then made a lateral move for the remaining 7 years I was in Oregon into training new agents and experienced agents into production. It's kind of like a company coach, trainer. And so I did that for a long time, was very successful with that, and we were relocated in the midst of that. So took over a leadership position here in Birmingham, and that went great as well, had a good time, but realized over the course of my time here, I really just wanted to get back into full-time sales, and so that's what I opted to do.
Yeah, I think that's a part in which many agents get into the business. It's like maybe at one point I want to be in management or get my own brokerage going, and it could go well or it could go really, really bad.
Yeah.
And it all depends also on, like you're saying, as far as your own time, what you enjoy doing, and how you choose to spend it.
Yeah.
Uh,
As you know, there are a lot of misconceptions about the industry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go down the list with the compensation issues and lawsuits and everything else. I mean, we're not here to talk about all that stuff, but management in particular has a lot of misconceptions. It really, and I'll say it with this as a summary, real estate management and brokerage management really isn't in the game of real estate. It's actually a recruiting game. And so it's no longer a sales business with regard to homes. It's a recruiting business with regard to clientele, which are your agents. And so, and that was okay. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of the skill sets, mirror or they translate, but there's something to helping someone with their single biggest investment in their life, right? Sometimes you get to impact their family generationally.
You're right there in the middle of that impact. You don't have to wait on secondary and way down the line to actually see the difference. The difference is right then and there, in person and in flesh. And I think for me, that's another reason in which I enjoy this business. It's making that difference, especially when, you get to the finish line and then you get to follow up and continue that conversation with a relationship with those clients and see how family grows and other things happen in their life. And a lot of it had to do with you being involved in it.
Right. It's I love this business. And I think if it takes a unique person, right? As a brokerage manager, I was in the recruiting game. So I recruited a lot of agents over the course of 3 years and had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with specifically newer agents, but also experienced agents. And it takes a unique individual to get into an industry without a salary, without medical and dental, right? You basically you eat what you catch, right? And so there's a little different type of way of thinking for someone who is willing to do that. And so, when it's done right, the rewards are sweet. It's just a business.
So now you've seen that in California, Portland. You got a little bit of a feel for Tennessee, but now we're in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So let's start from zero. Somebody's looking at 5 possible areas that they're looking to relocate to, willingly, voluntarily, right? Let's start talking about why would they want to put Birmingham on that list?
Well, Birmingham, I'm a big history buff, right? So I love history and I love that type of environment. I love to study up. I'm a reader. I read something like 40 to 60 books a year. And a good portion of them, not all of them, of course, but a good portion of history. And so when I look at the South in general, what I'll do is I will use a friend who visited, and I thought he articulated Birmingham so concisely that I was like, that makes sense. And it was a great way to articulate. But what he said was, he goes, the differences between here and the West Coast, there's an actual culture, right? So I think everywhere has a culture, but it may not be readily noticeable, right? I grew up in part in Brooklyn, New York, totally different culture than Sacramento, California, which is where we relocated when I was in my teens, right? Yeah. Portland, Oregon. I used to tell people when I lived there, Oregon was established by cowboys, frontiersmen, hippies, right? So that culture permeates essentially every level. So now we go to Birmingham. Birmingham is the Bible Belt, right? And so not going to really discuss religion or faith, but, it permeates the culture. It's a Southern charm and Southern hospitality is a real thing, right? And so very, very warm and inviting. We stepped off the plane, and as we sat down to grab something to eat, right? We stopped for lunch, and the server is inviting us over for dinner. I mean, we struck up a conversation. Hey, so what do you think? Here's what we're doing. I was excited to be here. So was my wife and my children. We came in as a visit. and the server is telling us, "Oh, y'all should come to dinner, y'all," right? And so that's something that I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
But that Southern cultural hospitality is a legit real thing, and people are just absolutely friendly.
One thing with that word of culture and with homes is the word that came to mind was character.
Yeah.
What is the character of that location, that place? And that's what I'm hearing with that. So, and it does have to do a lot with the people that make up the town, right?
Right.
Inviting, hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start moving forward with adding to that list.
So the hospitality is great. The people are absolutely lovely, right? The food scene, right? If we're talking about kind of that cultural aspect, has really exploded over the last, say, 10, 15 years. Something we didn't realize. I mean, you don't really think Chicago level or New York level food scene, right? So Birmingham has quite a lot of unknown benefits, right? Birmingham, Alabama in particular is much lower. The tax system is much, I don't want to say cheaper, it's just less expensive to live here, right? I'll give you an example. So I sold my home, which was about 3,000 square feet in Oregon, to give you some numbers. And my property taxes, the lot was about 4,000 square feet. So little lot. Right?
Yeah.
And my property taxes were almost $7,000 a year for that. And I moved here on a lakefront property, almost an acre, 5,000 square foot home. My property taxes are $2,800 a year. It's a third of what they were. And I paid, I think, $300,000 less for this property than what I sold my property for in Oregon. And so roughly about $250,000, $260,000, something like that. So from a financial aspect, it just made sense, right? Mm-hmm. So you add to that the culture, the scene, which we had no idea about, right? We stepped off the plane. We knew one family here, and we were kind of impressed. Again, not what we expected. So we're driving around the city. We're looking around. My initial thought was, let me try to buy an investment or two, and let me kind of get the lay of the land, right? So again, we started in Tennessee and kind of looked around. And as it turns out, Birmingham itself is quite larger than people think, right? If you look at the population, it says it's about 290,000, give or take a few thousand. That's Birmingham proper. If you add the metro area, which is comprised of about 33 different municipalities, you're looking at about 1.4 million, give or take, 10, 20,000. So
yeah, that's considered a metropolitan area, metro area, pretty much.
Right. And so now, you have a much less expensive way of life. Mm-hmm. We'll go over the negatives of that a little later on, right? But the positives were, from a financial aspect, it just made sense. And so we moved.
So on the cost of living side, on the employment, salary, income level, how does that balance with?
It's commensurate. It's commensurate. I think when I left Oregon, the average income was about 65,000. Here it's 53, something like that. So, is it about 10, 15, 20% less? I think so on the aggregate, right? But that's also been increasing rapidly. A lot of people don't know that Birmingham itself is actually an IT hot point, right? So it's beginning to get a lot of tech companies, right? So it's also a high concentration of medical. We have UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, which is a teaching hospital. So, gigantic. It's probably 20% of downtown. And so
there's opportunities at let's say the labor market side, the salary, management, tech. It's varied. Yeah. One thing I've noticed with any local area or region that's taken a turn when the economy, there's a lapse of there's a recession, there's something that happens. It's when it's concentrated and doesn't have a diverse industry base that it's very susceptible to things going south.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I will look for, and if anybody's looking out, is the diversity of types of industries, employment types, that it's not all hospitality. That's one of the things with destination areas, that they're dependent on one type of or similar type of businesses.
Yeah.
So that's good to check off.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. So, I've always kind of, since moving here, I've always looked at kind of the lay of the land, right? I have an extensive real estate background. So I've looked at commercial, looked at residential, primarily residential. But when I look at it, I go, Birmingham really has all the makings of a major metropolitan area. And what I tell people when they visit, we are a small town trying to be a big city, right? I think that's a good way to describe it because of that Southern charm, Southern hospitality. People really slowed down, right? There's no kind of like rush to do anything, which again, I'll cover some of the negatives of that.
George, another, I guess, analogy to our business. What are comps to Birmingham? If somebody's thinking of other cities around the U.S., what would be some comparative, comparisons to that
Good
area?
Question. I can only share with you kind of where I've lived, and I grew up partially for about 15, 16 years, and through my teenage and young adult years in Sacramento, California. And Sacramento is about an hour and a half east of San Francisco, right? So I kind of relate Birmingham. Now, it's a major city. I think there's something like 2.3 million people in Sacramento, if you include the entire metropolitan area. So it's a fairly major city.
Yeah.
But it's an hour and a half from San Francisco, which is a major coastal city, right? I think San Francisco has over 1 million people by itself. Then you have the general Bay Area. You're probably looking at about 8 million. And so I kind of relate Birmingham kind of like the Sacramento of the South, because an hour and 30 minutes to our east is Atlanta, Georgia. And so we're not very far from Atlanta. Atlanta has the largest international airport in the South, in the southern United States, right? A lot of people don't know that. It's massive industry and variant industry. So there's a lot of kind of transient activity between Birmingham and Atlanta, just like Sacramento and San Francisco. There's a lot of transient activity between them. So I kind of related to that. Kind of some of the other things not really well known. I mean, if you look at a map, it would be known, but most people don't ever think Birmingham, Alabama, right? They might think Nashville, or they might think Louisiana, New Orleans. Well, we're 3 hours south of Nashville. We're 5 hours east of New Orleans. We're an hour and a half west of Atlanta. So we're in the midst of this triangle with these three major cities. A lot of what other people don't know, I didn't even know till I moved here, we've got some of the best beaches in the world, right? Alabama has about, if you look at the eastern side of the state, it's about 28, 30 miles of beaches that are 2.5, 3 hours. I mean, we're talking crystal, sugary, white sand. Yeah. I mean, it's basically northern Florida, right? And it runs along, they call it the Emerald Coast. You would never think high-rise condominium, penthouse, $3 million penthouse condo in Alabama, right?
Yeah, that was one that you had told me previously that I was like, what? Like, I wouldn't have thought Birmingham list and beaches on it.
Right.
No way. So I'm thinking just for that one item, I think this podcast, so just for that one item and having this mention of the beaches and access to that would be like bonus. And I think it's good like to have that destination where you can just leave on a mini vacation, like a staycation type, where it's obviously going to be budget friendly, and time wise, all sorts of things. So having a little bit of an escape is always good to have, no matter where you live. So having that, I think, is a great plus.
Yeah. There's also the environment where, I'll piggyback on that recreation comment. Birmingham itself is smack dab in the middle of an area of the South called the American Amazon. It's the most biodiverse area of the United States, and we're right in the middle of it. So if you want to talk fishing and hunting, there's really not a lot of better places than central Alabama, right? And so there's a lot of that type of thing that man, I had no idea moving here. So that's why I tell you, every time, I'm literally telling you, every time we invite someone, a friend from Portland or a relative, they look around, they go, not what I expected. Because there are scenes in Birmingham proper that are trendy. It used to be when I was in high school, we called that, well, that's where the yuppies move, right? Kind of hip. Birmingham, kind of hip. Kind of doesn't mold well. It doesn't match well, but it really is. It's kind of a best kept secret. And I remember moving here, people would tell me, all my neighbors, they would say, hey, don't tell anyone. We don't want it to change, right? And it's just been priceless to kind of get to know the culture and the feel. And it's been awesome, man. We have a really great lifestyle, and my business is exploding. It's been awesome to sell real estate.
And man, we're like bringing up some great comments about Birmingham. Is there, I guess, people moving in, they move out, and I imagine the cities that you mentioned are places in which you typically would see people locating to Birmingham, and then if they were to leave Birmingham, more than likely they would probably be going to one of those cities. Is that sort of the dynamic?
Yeah. So Birmingham is, again, about 33 different cities proper, right? So you have 33 different mayors, 33 different police forces, right? And so, and each one has its own kind of vibe, right? If we're talking, we're not going to talk demographics, but there's a lot of money on one side of the city, not a lot of money on the other side of the city. But you know what? They all kind of crisscross, and it's great people. We just have a great time. It's not what I would say is perceived outside of the state. It is just not like that. And the state gets a bad name, and that's unfortunate because did you know that some of the best schooling is in Alabama, in Birmingham, right? A lot of people don't know that Presbyterian private school is here, or that's Birmingham Southern or UAB, some of the best schools in the nation. There's a university right smack dab and right in the center of Birmingham in a suburb called Homewood, right? Homewood's its own municipality, but you could, has a Birmingham address. And that's Sanford University, right? It's this private university, massively popular. I think the tuition's kind of expensive, right? It's about $50,000-$60,000 a year. So we're talking Ivy League level, and you would never know that. It's not really marketed. It's not really put out there. Mostly negatives are put out there. And I think, to be honest with you, the population likes it that way. We kind of maintain that culture and that slower lifestyle. So that way it's not all busy and trafficky and all that.
Let's and this is a space, again, living like to get the real scoop on things. So we don't putting out there misinformation. Let's dive a little bit into those perceived negatives. Okay. And what are your thoughts about those? And you tell me what those are. So, what do you think?
I mean, anyone could do a Google search and see what happened in the 50s and 60s, right? The state has come a long way, right? Now, as realtors, I can care less about demographics. Does not matter to me in the least. You want to buy a house? I'll sell you a house, right? That's the only thing that should matter. And what most people don't realize is that this is good information, right? You can Google, Birmingham itself is 70% African American, right? About 25% Caucasian, probably about 5 or 6% Hispanic, right? So you have these three populations which outside the state are perceived to not get along. There are no issues. Listen, I can tell you right now, there are no issues with the dreaded R word here in Alabama. In fact, I would argue that Alabama and Birmingham in particular, because of the past issues, has actually done more than most cities or states to reconcile those issues or things of the past, right? Because of that. So don't let that, if that's something of concern, it is complete false. It is not an issue here within the state for anyone considering a move here in Birmingham. In fact, I would argue if you came here, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought. And it's just been great.
There is, let me ask you, is there a downtown sort of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Downtown since COVID
district.
Yeah, their downtown's been a little quieter since COVID. And I think, culturally, Alabama, we kind of beat to our own drum. The state motto is Latin for "We dare defend our rights." So there's kind of a stubbornness. This is how we're going to do it. Here's why. And sometimes that could be the negative, right? Because try calling a contractor to come out and fix something today. You're looking at a week from now. It's just the way it is. And it's not anything bad on that contractor. It is the nature of the culture in Alabama. And that takes a little getting used to, right? I'm an aggressive agent. I did a lot of deals in Portland and in other states. I've trained hundreds of agents over the course of 20 years. And so, I want things done now. That's not going to fly, right?
So slower pace.
And so it's just a slower pace. So downtown, how I'm relating that to downtown, COVID forced people home. And companies have kind of adopted to that. We'll continue to let that remain. And so even though a lot of other places have already moved forward with getting back into the office, things like that, Birmingham takes a little more time. So that takes a little getting used to. But they've got some great cultural districts in and around downtown. Great. I'm telling you right now, phenomenal food. Phenomenal. I mean, Michelin star level restaurants and chefs. I mean, great. You name it, find it.
And one of the things I think I haven't done, but to me it sounds like it's obvious that to do is to kind of maybe share some links of some of those interests, places of interest, things to check out. But let's dive into the real estate side of things. For comparison's sake, and I think it's always relative, even like within the same town, it's like, well, what are you going for? What is your perception of value? And I think every individual has a different perception of what the value is, to them. Like, is it size, location, talking about the lot size, for example, those kinds of things. Okay. So as a point of reference from the Denver metro area, 11 county area, I'm part of the Denver Metro Association of Realtors. Statistic wise, June median close price was $615,000. That's everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's actually it's held steady, if not very, very low single digits appreciation year over year. Tell me about that. Now I'll tell you, let me say something else. For example, entry level, probably say in the low 400s to mid 400s for something like 3 bedrooms, two bath, at least 1 or 2 car garage. It depends on the area, but you can find something. You can find starter homes under 400, and then the condo and condo probably be in the mid 200s and up.
Okay.
So just as a basis. So tell me kind of what's it like in Birmingham if we're looking at numbers.
Well, if space is a value, you're going to get a lot of space for the money, right? So Birmingham, when I looked at the numbers just 2 weeks ago, Birmingham right now, 364,000 is the average sale price in Birmingham proper. Now remember, within that metropolitan area, there are 33 different jurisdictions and cities. Each city will have a different average count. So, or average sale price or customs, right? So those are a little different. So for example, you have downtown Birmingham, you're probably looking at 375,000 on average for a house in downtown, maybe a little more than that, 400. You go literally a third of a mile down the way across down 31, which is Highway 31, which is not a major highway, but it's a street that goes through. One side you have Vestavia, one side you have Homewood, 2 different suburbs of Birmingham, equally further in distance. Homewood, you're looking at 575,000 average sale price, where just a third of a mile down, it's 400, right? You go into Vestavia, you're looking at roughly 700,000 just right across the road. So it's, when you first drop into Birmingham, it just doesn't make sense. When you're an agent like myself, where everything's kind of the same in Oregon, you have 4 distinct portions of the city. You have northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast, right? And each one has, a couple of different analytics. Birmingham has 33 different little analytics. So you can look down and go, that doesn't make sense. Why is that side of the road 250,000, but this side 450,000, yet they're 50 feet apart, right? Well, one side is annexed into Vestavia. The other side is annexed into Homewood. Another corner is annexed into downtown Birmingham. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It actually makes it quite difficult to really dial in comps. So
let me ask you about a little more of the rural area.
Sure.
So a little bit further away from Birmingham proper. And people ask about ranches, like acreage.
Yeah.
If you look at, I'm talking about, under 5 acres, but over an acre, nice single family, maybe horse property.
Yeah.
What can somebody find that kind of like price range?
I would say depending on how far outside, I would say you could find that anywhere from 250,000 to 600,000. So it's a big spread because depending on what part of what direction outside of Birmingham you are. If you go straight north, you're into an area called Gardendale, then Kimberly, Morris, and Warrior. That's very popular. Great, excellent school district. You're going to pay more there than say you would as you get over to Walker County, which is about 25 minutes west. So you got the northern section, which is going to be more expensive, than the west side, which is going to be less expensive as you get out. Even though you could have the same property, they could be $150,000 difference. So it will depend on what direction you go.
Yeah, generally, like I tell you got to go northeast here in the Denver metro area to find that. And it'll be more expensive, but relatively, yes.
Yeah. But if you go west, man, you can get a great deal. You can get a great deal and create your own little world out there, right? So
yeah. Especially those like move-up buyers, people have that experience. They're, even if it's a second home, it's for that, it's like a sanctuary, right? When you get that, and especially, I guess it depends on people's upbringing and what they're used to. People that grew up on farms and things like that, they want to get back to that, and it is not the easiest thing to do financially. Man, anything else that you want to share about Birmingham? And again, we're looking at living in Birmingham and having this conversation with George, EXP agent, been in the business for a while, looked at different areas, and I think it's a good point of comparison.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking at a change of lifestyle, right? Like my wife and I were, I was in the rat race in Oregon for a long time, working a lot and all that. And trust me, I still work a lot. But if you're looking for value, slower pace of life, but still have access to everything you like my wife, she likes access to Costco, right? She likes to shop at those kind of stores. And so all of that is here. I live just south of Birmingham, really about 3 miles south of Birmingham. So basically it's Birmingham, but a little town called Pelham, which is about 25,000 people. And we are literally 10 minutes from Costco, 10 minutes from kind of the hot area, which is Cahaba Heights and Mountain Brook. We're 25, not even 25, probably 15 minutes from Homewood, which is close to downtown. We're 20 minutes from downtown Birmingham. It's just a great lifestyle. Like I said, we paid not very much for our lakefront property, small private lake, probably 2/3 of what we sold our little dinky house in Oregon for. So if you want to come and experience that, man, I would encourage you to study up, check it out. There's anything you would need here. Oh, top of that, also, we are just an hour and a half south of Huntsville, which is where the FBI is. You've got the rocket, you got NASA up there. These are things that most people don't realize. We are effectively a major state, but we don't come off that way. And so, but Birmingham proper, central, right in the middle of the state, man, you can hop, skip, and a jump anywhere you need to go. So it's really, you have access to everything you would ever want or need and still have that slow-paced lifestyle. So, it's awesome. And there's a great value for property here. So,
Awesome. Hey, Matt, Great having you. Thanks for those insights on Birmingham and just the overall experience of what you're about and being an agent and having that conversation. With that, if you can just stay offline real quick.
Okay.
For everybody else, hey, if you like this content, make sure to comment, like, share. What else? Where else would you like to know about? Get that first agent's perspective on the real estate market, but just living there. And I think there's nothing like talking to somebody who lives in the area and understands getting back to the culture, price points, industry, the employment, those kinds of things. But with that, until next time, we'll see you.